Pennies. Lots of times we get dirty pennies when we get change from a store. And what do you do with those dirty pennies? Sometimes we just leave them because they're dirty and yucky. But let's talk about some chemical reactions that got them dirty or that will clean them up, one of the two. Now you can see these over here are all nice and shiny. And I took some that looked just like these and I put them on a paper towel and I soaked my paper towel with just pure vinegar. And I left them for, I think these have been in for 2 days, and you can see what happened. Now, that has to do with the reaction between the vinegar and the copper that is in the pennies. Now, to give you a very good visual, the Statue of Liberty has a copper coating on it. And a few years ago, they did a complete cleanup of the Statue of Liberty because she had turned completely green. And you're saying, well, nobody poured vinegar on her. How did the Statue of Liberty turn green? Well, it came from the acidity. Of course, the vinegar is an acid, but it came from the acidity that is in rain. And over a period of several hundred years, then the Statue of Liberty turned completely green. So now what would they have done to have reversed that chemical reaction between the acidity of the green, or the acidity of the acid rain, and my acidity of the vinegar here to make things green? So you can clean them up. Now, the interesting thing is that you think, well, I can just use soap and water. And if I use soap and water, and I've got a wet towel here, if I use soap and water and I rub and rub, you can see that some of that comes off. But for the most part, it still looks pretty cruddy, which is what these look like that have been cleaned a little bit with soap and water. But they still look pretty rough. So how do you clean those? Now, again, that has to do with another chemical reaction. So I can fill my plate, and this is not going to happen very quickly, so you won't be able to see the final result. But I can take salt and vinegar, and the combination between those two things will change my ugly, dirty pennies to pre-copper pennies, depending on how much dirt and junk there was on them to start with. A second one, we'll come back to that one in just a second one. A second method, and this takes a lot slower period of time, but if you take taco sauce, like from Taco Bell or Taco Tico, and put your pennies in there, the acidity in the taco sauce will also take the dirt off of your dirty pennies as well. Now, just in those few minutes, except for this little fella, except in those few minutes, you can see how much has changed from my dirty pennies to a much cleaner penny. And if I leave them sitting there, then they'll get to the nice copper color that they were originally. So, chemical reactions.